This is Nightwatch N8, your favorite host of the Nightwatch Podcast. The uncompromising voice of reason, tried and true, steadfast, the guy who doesn't hold any punches and the straight shooter that you've all come to love, right guys? Ever since the good old Rona days. And speaking of, just like the fog that has settled in down here in the valley, northern Colorado, I think I was told kind of a cold front blew in some of the smoke. I guess similar to that, the fog is still firmly settled in the minds of some of the people suffering from cognitive dissonance ever since, the media manufactured pandemic. With this latest hysteria generated over, whether or not people may or may not have access to the latest, why even have to say this at this point? Like, how many people are still taking the latest booster shot, guys? And maybe it is, once again, media generated all this controversy over RFK Jr. Limiting the latest booster shot, to 60 and over, and or young children suffering from other illnesses, right? So basically, the demographic that they said should have had it in the first place, the at-risk community, the ones that they want to, kind of eliminate anyway because there's too many useless feeders on the earth. I guess according to RFK Jr., it's A-OK, even though, he sure as hell won't, to get your jab as long as you're over 60 or a vulnerable, sickly, young child. And we're still arguing about this in this modern day and age. I guess RFK faced some scrutiny today on a panel for his firing of one of these brought to you by Pfizer goons from CDC, was it? In any case, it's just funny. It's just a little side note. I haven't really done a whole lot of research on that, as you can probably tell from my stuttering and brain searching. Lately, I swear, man, talking about fog, I don't know about everybody else out there, but I have had some serious brain fog. And I know part of it is my lifestyle, staying up late, like sleep deprivation for the last, 2, 3, 4 decades of my life. I guess that would make pretty much my whole entire life there for the most part. But yeah, it's not, don't try this at home, kids. Don't subject yourself to extended periods of sleep deprivation. If you want to be, working on all cylinders up there in the gray matter, working on all synapses. I don't know how to phrase it. Try to sound smart. But I don't know how many of you out there caught. I actually, last night, this was another reason why I got to bed so late, as I sat through I think it was about an hour and a half long press conference. And I think from what I gathered, it was kind of organized by my main man, Thomas Massie. And I know some of you out there still criticize Massie. It's like, okay, who else do we have that is trying to push the issue when it comes to the government releasing any sensitive, incriminating information about the Epstein perps? How about that Epstein list, guys? Trump, some people say, why didn't Massie bring this up when Biden was in office? Well, technically, yeah, he did. I think it was in 2022, in one interview, he claimed that he had tweeted about it. And again, in 2024, when Biden was in office, he was one of the lone voices calling for a release of the Epstein files. But Tommy Massie, bad guy now, because Tommy Massie is going against Trump's child predator cover-up operation, right, guys? So that makes you a bad guy, according to MAGA, because this is Trump is the hill, pile of shit, I guess, that they're willing to die on and literally sacrifice. I mean, once you get to a level where you're excusing the cover-up of Epstein's little blackmail network of child predators, PDFs, like people like to call them, to avoid the censors. Once you've lowered yourself to that level where you're willing to compromise any crumb of credibility, when you've bowed so low, gotten under the table, I guess, while Trump's sitting there dining and you're gathering up breadcrumbs and doing who knows what else to satisfy your cult leader, Donald Trump. I don't want to get too explicit here. Our minds are so full of filth already. It's like, I think that's part of this operation. It's just like, this, I don't know about you, but this stuff really pisses me off. It really gets under my skin. I tweeted this out today, and I tagged actually Thomas Massie because, he follows me on X, because the guy's got, good taste, right? I tagged him saying that, either we the people stand up now and demand the release of the Epstein files and, all the documents incriminating, Epstein's inner circle of child predators and blackmailed world leaders, in not so many words. Either we release the Epstein files, we demand the release, or, we all just have to live with the fact that our government is being ran by blackmailed child predators, right? And how well are you going to sleep at night? And how well are your children going to sleep at night knowing that they live in a world like that? But the MAGAs will just continue to make up excuses, and they'll just be strung along like a bunch of faithful little idiotic brain-dead sheep on every word that Trump utters from his disgusting mouth. And so Trump makes it a political issue by saying it's a Democratic hoax. It's all a Democratic hoax, folks, even though I campaigned and I in interviews I said I'd have no problem with releasing the Epstein files before I got back in office. Speaking for Trump, he speaks about himself so much in the third person. I just thought I'd help him out. Despite the fact that some people claim Massie is only going after Trump because he's a lefty, because it's a left-right thing now, because Trump made it one. Despite the fact that I guess he was fooled by this great Democratic hoax as soon as a year ago. And J.D. Vance and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and all these other little shills that make up the Patriot LARPer Trump cabinet. I guess they were all fooled by this masterful hoax invented by the Democrats, right? Because we all know that when it comes to child trafficking, blackmail operations, it's only the Democrats who get involved in that sort of thing, right, guys? Right? So Trump makes it a big political issue, and Massie's the only guy I know. Margorie Taylor Green earned my respect by joining hands with Massie. Part of some of the few Republicans, I think there was only like 4, am I right there, guys? Out of all the Republicans, there's like 200 Republicans that aren't willing to sign Thomas Massie's, bill to force the hand of the government to release all that they have to the public, and nobody's asking for victim names, right? You have a God. This guy. If anybody looks like a child predator, it's Mike Johnson. You have Mike Johnson with his little smirky little smile on his face, smirky little grin, claiming that, like a good serpent, like any good serpent, right? They speak out of both sides of their mouths because they have forked tongues. So he talks about in an interview from yesterday, I think it was, about the whole Thomas Massie thing. He wants to protect, so he's basically hiding behind the victims, right? Epstein's victims. Because he wants to protect, quote unquote, the victims, from any damages, from any potential harm that might result in releasing their names. Meanwhile, he's protecting the predators, Epstein's inner circle. But at the same time, he's saying how he's against the whole idea of stalling, right? As he actively stalls and won't allow a vote on Massie's bill to force the government to release the Epstein files, the information on the people that Epstein was funneling young women to, and the people who were funding Epstein's operation, right, from the get-go. And we're the bad guys, the few of us who still have principle left, because we haven't sold our souls to Donald Trump, a freaking idiotic TV show host, celebrity, pretending to be president. The same guy who promised total transparency, right? Remember the cheesy little Epstein binders that had printed out on the front, and I guess that's all that matters. A flimsy little piece of paper that says the most transparent administration in history. Now says, move along, case closed, nothing to see here. So yeah, I watched this hour and a half, roughly, press conference, and to me, at first, I caught some of the clips. One of the red flags that I saw instantly, or that popped out, was this black, very, very pretty, and a lot of these girls are, still fairly beautiful. All these years later, like 20 years later, however long it's been, since the 90s, when this was going on. This one girl, model-looking, dark-skinned, African-American looking. She sounded so polished the first time I heard her.
Us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know who were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details.
But I was like, is this more the same, everything we get lately? Is this more of the kind of limited hangout, for the cameras, just to kind of appease the maddening masses? Is this lady a crisis actor type thing? Then after I watched the whole video, I realized she said earlier in her speech that she has her own podcast. So obviously she's a woman who's used to being behind the camera and, articulating her speech in a kind of a professional manner, unlike myself, I guess, right? So okay, I was like, okay, I relaxed a little bit. But yeah, after listening to all these girls and watching their body language, and of course, Thomas Massie let out, and MTG, and a couple of these other Democrats, I don't even know their names, or at least this one other guy, brown-skinned guy, Indian or something, I don't know. Yeah, after listening to everybody speak, and just looking at how the body language between each other, man, one of the most powerful speeches, and sorry again for all the noise, I'm heading up the mountain back home here, up Storm Mountain Road. Let me switch hands because my hand's starting to hurt. Yeah, one of the most powerful speeches, of course, was Giuffre, I think is how you pronounce her name, who recently died. Still not sure if we're 100% sure how she died. Virginia Giuffre, I almost wonder, because she was drawing attention to herself. This is pure speculation, and this is not intended to smear her character in any way. She's one of the bravest women out there, or was. I almost wonder if, she might have committed suicide to gain attention to this issue before it completely fades away into obscurity. At this opportune time in the history of this nation, when we have a president who sits in office who's promising to drain the swamp and to be the most transparent administration in history, who campaigned on exposing these people, right? And once again, an outsider. Just the timing of her death. And I think it was her brother that spoke a really moving message about just kind of keeping on the legacy of Virginia. And the tears to me looked real, right, guys? This wasn't, like, I don't know, some of those other crisis actors we may have remembered in the past. May or may not have been real, this or that, mass shooting. All the body language, the tone of voice.
The same freedom that these monsters took from these survivors, they should never be afforded. They should never be allowed to continue their lives with impunity. Let's be clear. This is not a political issue. This is not about left or right. This is about humanity. This is about doing what's right. And this is about ensuring that the future we leave behind isn't one where the powerful can hide behind their wealth, their influence, and their money to evade justice. Our plea to you, whether you're a dad, a mom, a brother, or a sister, look your young ones in the face. Look them in the eye and tell them you didn't stand against the very people who raped and preyed upon children and young women. Tell them you were willing to negotiate a deal.
These, to me, actually, take it with a grain of salt. This is just my opinion, but these actually seem like genuine people, right? This did not look at all that staged to me, right? Other than the fact that I think Massie and others organized this event pretty cleverly, by the way. Thomas Massie. Because literally all of these victims were standing up there, these brave young women were standing up there, at one point threatening to release a list of their own. Now that is playing with fire, depending on how long it takes them to release this list that they are compiling amongst themselves, especially some of the girls who aren't even made aware to the public, right? This one lady, I'm bad with names, I can't remember all their names, but this one lady during the event said that she was going to get information from other girls who weren't up there, and there are hundreds, up to 200, 250 known victims, by the way.
We're reaching out to survivors that are scared to come forward and that also know who they were trafficked to. So that's the list that we're compiling. We're not quite sure, how we're going to release that, or even if we're going to. The Department of Justice needs to release the list.
Right,
yes.
For folks at home, they might be confused. Survivors know the names. You've seen these powerful people. Why can't you say the names? Could you just explain for folks?
Why do we have to say the names when the government knows the names? And we're also scared to do so. Look what's happened to so many of the survivors that have revealed names.
So just think of that. 200 plus young girls that were trafficked. Gee, how many people do you think might be on that little Epstein list, guys? How many different world leaders, how many different elected officials, how many different politicians, when you have 200 Republicans, and I guess that includes Rand Paul. I don't know what's going on with Rand Paul. I don't know if this is just not his little cup of tea, but come on, Rand. Where you at, buddy? Represent your friend Thomas Massie. We need more Republicans standing up for the children. Remember way back when, this was like maybe a year and a half ago, when all these high and mighty, self-righteous, right-wing influencers would go on and on and on, day after day, on Twitter or X, calling for justice, calling to protect the children from these child predators, right? Like, I don't know, Joe Biden's son, Hunter, for one.
And we're gonna get you. You understand that? You do know that, don't you? I promise you, you are going to pay dearly for what you've done. We will get you off the back of our species and our children. And your leadership is going to supermax prisons. You will be lucky to spend the rest of your lives in prison.
Where are they now? All I hear is crickets. All I hear is criticism of anybody who is now calling for what they all used to call for about a year ago, less than a year ago, in releasing the Epstein files. Why? Because they're the biggest group of NPCs on the planet, MAGA, that is, and they will literally sacrifice every ounce of integrity, step down from any moral high ground that they could ever possibly, claim to ever have again, by defending Trump at all costs, no matter how ridiculous the narrative that he puts out. Are we still talking about this Epstein guy? What is wrong with you? Basically throwing his own followers under the bus, likening us to the, putting us on the same level as, not us, because I was never a Trump supporter by any means. I've been calling out Trump for, years now. Ever since I had probably pretty much started up my channel, I was never on the Trump train. I could never believe him for a second. And I saw how he turned on Ron Paul, and he turned on Rand Paul. And, I was one of these early Ron Paul revolutionaries. So, I take that kind of personal when the godfather of all libertarianism, the true anti-establishment outsider, Ron Paul, Trump stands up there at the CPAC and says he doesn't have a chance. Ron Paul doesn't have a chance. He's not going to win, guys. But yeah, just the Clinton ties, of course he was, best buddies with Epstein, just a coincidence, right guys, just a coincidence. Elon Musk comes out and claims that Trump is on the Epstein list, and that's why we'll never see it. From what I gathered, Trump never replied. Kind of weird, don't you think? And what all that little phony controlled opposition squabble between the billionaire technocrat Elon Musk and Trump, however much you want to, credibility you want to give that whole cat fight. But it's interesting, just how many people online, I guess my main point of contention here is just how many people online who claim to be Christian, who claim any kind of principle whatsoever, will literally dig their own grave if it means defending Trump, even when it comes to Trump protecting child predators in government. Pretty pathetic, guys. Pretty pathetic. And I'm so glad that I never jumped on the Trump train because, I'd never have discredited myself and everybody out there listening to me by telling everybody to have faith in a TV celebrity, lifelong Democrat, Clinton ally and buddy and pal, and of course best friend with Epstein, who literally had girls like Virginia Giuffre recruited from his own private Mar-a-Lago resort. What are the odds, and I've been bringing this up for almost a decade now, what are the odds all these connections the flight logs with Donald Trump on them, and how just somehow the Teflon Don gets away without any criticism, despite the fact that anybody else, on the left who had as close a ties to Epstein as Donald Trump did, they'd be calling to tar and feather and hang them high, basically, anybody on the right. So, yeah, the hypocrisy, that's one of the things that I cannot stand. If you've known me long enough, guys, I just can't stand hypocrisy. I just can't stand liars. I just can't stand people who abuse the faith. Some people put them in office. They abuse the trust that they've been given for things like this. And yeah, I encourage everybody else out there, if you haven't yet, to sit through these, some of these speeches from these young women who, interestingly enough, have girls of their own now. And so yeah, I ask once again, are you willing to tell all these young girls growing up in America today that you're willing to defend child predators, to protect child predators over young, innocent little girls? Because that's what that's what you guys are signing up for. And I just want to, again, I don't know 100%. Everything I've seen from Massie seems pretty legit, right? I kind of view him as the next Ron Paul reboot. And if he runs in 2028, I might just get out there and campaign again for the first time since Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012. Massie ran, Massie MTG even, I don't know. If he's alive that long, right, guys? So yeah, pray for protection for Massie. And but he's the bad guy, right, guys? He's the bad guy who wants to force all these criminals still within our government, obviously. From what I can tell, what is this? 80-90% of our politicians must be blackmailed in some way in order to not want to go along with it. Trump put out the message that basically you're considered an enemy combatant if you sign up, kind of putting a chill in the GOP, I guess. Anybody who wants to sign Massie's bill, yeah, you're basically an anathema, right? You're a combatant. A terrorist? I guess you could get bombs dropped on you next, right, guys? Drone would drop a bomb on you next because the President of the United States considers you an enemy. People are willing, that's what has amazed me more than anything else with this whole Trump charade, this reality TV show host turned president. He told everybody everything they wanted to hear, arrived on the scene at the right moment when there's enough anger and hostility and resentment towards the government. This guy told everybody everything they wanted to hear. It seemed like he just spoke from the heart, right, guys? He was not self-censored. He said things that weren't PC. He hurt people's feelings. He mocked handicapped people. And just on every level, how these compromised leaders, these compromised cult leaders, compromise their followers. It's just one thing after another. Christians that would back Trump after some of the things that he was caught on audio saying, right, about women grabbing him by the Gucci. It's a good handbag, I guess. Worth a lot of money. I know I sound like a prude, but I'm really not trying to stoop to the level of what's commonly accepted in today's, especially, political speech. Because like I said, these compromised leaders that everybody look up to, in effect, I think they're put there to compromise all of us. Because we, or not me, but apparently a shit ton of people out there are willing to project their own ego on these people. And, an attack on them is an attack on attack on Trump is an attack on them, right? And on every level, apparently they're, like I said, willing to dig their own graves, willing to sacrifice every principle, willing to sacrifice everything that they claim to have stood for to defend this one man. And this is the danger and the risk of personality politics, guys, of worshiping celebrities of any kind, trusting in flesh, right? Trusting in man. That'll always lead you down the wrong path, because we're all fallen, even myself. I'm not perfect myself. Call me out when you can. If I say something wrong, let me know in the comment section. Anyway, and I've been eyeballing the clock here, so I know it's been about a half an hour I've been yapping. So God bless everybody. This is just Nightwatch N8. Another little update. Yeah, I encourage everybody to watch this. It was pretty fascinating. A lot of these girls I hadn't even heard of before that stood up there. And you could just tell the lifelong trauma that these poor young ladies have been through. And yeah, like, you know, at one point during one of the interviews at NBC, they all raised their hands, or most of them raised their hands when asked if they had little girls of their own. And that just, yeah, to me, that's just kind of heartbreaking to think so many people who claim the moral high ground, who claim to be Christian patriots, right, are willing to defend a guy who's protecting these child predators. And this younger generation is going to, how are you supposed to be patriotic, right? How are you supposed to salute the flag? How are you supposed to celebrate Independence Day when you knowingly live in a country where the government is run by child predators and protects blackmailed child predators? And these are the people you're supposed to vote for and have faith of any kind in, right? I guess that's why I consider myself a political atheist, because I don't really have too much faith at all. Thomas Massie is the best thing going as I see it, but yeah, if he flips on a dime and turns his back on everything that he wants to, I'll call him out just as soon. Yeah, God bless everybody. Nightwatch N8. Stay in touch. I know my videos hardly get any views lately because apparently YouTube doesn't shadow ban anybody. And neither does X, right? Like, I have lowest numbers in the history of being on X, and I have like almost 6,500 followers on that platform, but nobody sees anything that I put out for the world to read or see or hear or watch or whatever. Yeah, it gets old, folks. Yeah, I've been kind of busy last end of the summer. Little projects here in the property. So you probably haven't seen too much of me as usual. I've been putting out, videos now and then just to whet your little taste buds and, keep everybody, whoever does see my videos, aware to the fact that I'm still out here. Yeah, stay tuned over the winter. I plan on doing more, and I might even do more like, some of these survival tip shows. Kind of like the Doomsday Garden series, but more like ways to survive what's coming. And of course, the survival tip number one is always to build your faith, right? To get right with God, because ultimately, the greatest tool in your bug out bag is going to be your faith, because every other earthly resource is going to be cut off from those who choose to remain true to God. The remnant body of believers who keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus Christ. Those are the true enemy of the dragon, which controls all these governments of the world right now. And yes, growingly obvious that the dragon is in control of this once lamb-like beast of America. God bless everybody. Once again, I know I say that a lot, but hey, you can never be blessed enough, right? God bless once again. Nightwatch N8. Till next time, signing out.